Okay, these move much faster than the first set where you had to graph it. Essentially, you're saying solve the equation by finding the square roots. And the big idea here is that when you square root a number, like if we say the square root of a squared equals the square root of 324, we can say then a is equal to, and when we square root 324, essentially what we're saying is what number results in 324 when you square it. And you should remember that a negative times a negative equals um, the same thing as that positive times a positive. So if we wanted to um, square root this, we can say, okay, the square root of 324 is 18, but we need to know that not only is it positive 18 that results in 324 when you square it, but negative 18 does as well. And so this is how you write it. You write it plus or minus 18. Okay. Um, those are the values of A that will result in 324 when you square it. Now, before you can square root it, what we need to do is sort out all of the rest of the things. So what we want to do for number 23 is to say minus 49 minus 49, and we get r squared equals 0. So then when we square root that, the square root of r squared is equal to the square root of 0, and that's just equal to 0. Okay? If it's 0, there's only 1. Square root of 0 is 0. So r equals 0. Now, for number 25, what we need to do in this one is we need to just say g squared equals. So what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is this. You take 4g squared and you divide it by 4. And that means you have to take 25, divide that by 4. And what you get as a result is g squared is equal to 25 over 4. And if you then square root them both, sorry about that, square root them both, what you get is g is equal to, and you got to do the square root of both of those numbers. What's the square root of 25? On top is 5. What's the square root of 4? It's 2. And because we're square rooting, we've got to write the plus or minus, positive or negative of those numbers. We're going to get that twice. Positive 5 halves squared is 25 fourths, and negative 5 halves squared is also 25 fourths. Now, excuse me, that shouldn't have done that. There you go. Now, we are going to continue doing this. So we got to now move this negative 20 for number 27. We've got to subtract that, add that to both sides. Because what we're doing here is we're trying to get it down to just q squared so that we can solve this. And when we divide both sides by 5, we get q squared equals 4, which if we were to square root both sides, we would get q equaling positive or negative 2. Okay, and you can check that if you want. You could plug in positive 2 and see if it works out to be 0. Plug in negative 2, should work out to be 0. Yeah? Okay, let's keep it going. We are going to add 32 to both sides. And we get 2r squared equals 32. Dividing both sides by 2, we get r squared equals 16. And when we square root 16, we get r is equal to plus or minus 4. Both, right? Not even or, but plus and minus 4, meaning both of those numbers are solutions that will get us to 0. Okay? And, sorry, one more. Let's box this. Let's do this last one. Add 45 to both sides. Oops, that was sloppy. Let me do that again. Five z squared equals 45. Dividing both sides by 5, we get 45 divided by 5. Z squared is equal to 9. And then z is equal to plus and minus 3. Yeah, hopefully this is just one of those things that you're like, yep, I see it, get what's going on. So we did 6 problems in 6 minutes. That means they're moving pretty quickly. And that was with me blah, blah, blahing. Hopefully you can solve them even faster. Okay, one more problem in this whole problem set.